Welcome to KMET 1490 AM ABC News Radio and the Southern California Business Report with Yvette Walker, a show dedicated to highlighting successful Southern California businesses and the people behind them.
Welcome and thank you for joining Southern California Business Report on ABC News and Talks, KMET 1490 AM, 98.1 FM, and KMET TV. I'm Yvette Walker, live blasting our signal from the center of Southern California, serving a population of over 25 million. Get us crystal clear and on demand by downloading the free live streaming app on Google Play and the Apple App Store. As always, a huge shout out to the team, Mitch, Bill, and Sean. I love you guys. And to our special advisory committee that can be found at www.scbrtalk.com/advisory committee. Today, I have the distinct honor and privilege to introduce DeAndre Lampkin. He is a law enforcement professional in California. During his tenure, he has earned several commendations for his work in educating youth, quality of service, community involvement, and response to mental health crisis. He is also the founder and chief executive officer of Care Staffing Professionals, a healthcare staffing solutions company that creates new jobs for healthcare professionals throughout the state of California. Mr. Lampkin is a seasoned public servant, along with strong community service background and experience in starting and leading program initiatives. He successfully founded the DeAndre D. Lampkin Foundation, a 501c3 tax-exempt human services organization designed to promote social good projects throughout the United States. He serves as a planning commissioner for the City of Ontario, California, vice chairman of the Los Angeles Region Community Recovery Organization, board member for the Esperanza Scholarship Foundation, and board member for the Creekside West Village Master Association located in Ontario, California. DeAndre Lampkin is the youngest of three brothers, the son of a single mother and the product of the poor, gang-ridden, and drug-infested South Central Los Angeles. Despite his upbringing, Mr. Lampkin has made it his mission to make a positive contribution to society through public service. Mr. Lampkin is an active member of Alpha Phi Sigma, Criminal Justice Honor Society, and earned a Bachelorette of Science in Criminal Justice Administration. In 2017, he earned his Master Science in Homeland Security and Emergency Management with the distinction of high honors from National University. DeAndre is a two-time nominee to the 2017 National University Scholarship Conference and recipient of the National University's 2017 Top Scholar Award and the Emerging Leadership Award. He is also the recipient of the Artist in Music Humanitarian of the Year Award. In 2018, he earned the World Networks' Community Enrichment Award for his contributions to the Puerto Rico disaster recovery effort following Hurricane Maria. He holds several certifications in Homeland Security and terrorism-related topics. His research in areas of domestic and international policy has been published in the William and Mary Environmental Law and Policy Review and the University of Oregon's Journal of Environmental Law and Litigation. His work and research in mental health as it relates to improving law enforcement's response has been published in the International Journal of Mental Health and Human Resilience. Thank you so much for being with us here today, DeAndre.
You're welcome, Yvette, and thank you for having me.
Beautiful. But before we go any longer, I just want to recognize you because on June 24th, Deputy DeAndre Lampkin who has been assigned to the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department Parks Bureau, was awarded the 2023 Law Enforcement Officer of the Year Award for Community Service by the American Legion Department of California. Congratulations again, DeAndre.
Thank you, Yvette. I really appreciate it. And I also want to give a thank you to the nominating committee, the American Legion, and also Captain Ernest Bailey for nominating me and selecting me for the award. And it feels a little awkward because, I feel like the veterans who looked at the work that I was doing are definitely owed so much more. And there's so much more that we could be doing for our veterans in our communities.
Agreed. So with that said, DeAndre, as you know, one of my first questions to each of my guests is to please talk about and share their journey to pursuing the careers, the fields that they're in today. Please share yours.
My experience in public service really started as a youth with the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department's Explorer program. But I think my interest in law enforcement really started earlier than that. I'm a product of South Central Los Angeles. I believe it's called South Los Angeles now. But I grew up in an area that was, in fact, gang-ridden, and a lot of drug use and gun violence was normal. I distinctly remember the 1992 riots and what that was like. I went to school 2 blocks away from where the Reginald Denny incident happened, at the remarkable, as they call it, remarkable Raymond Avenue Elementary School. And I remember my mother, whisking us away and taking us home because the city was enveloped in this civil unrest. I remember looking out the window when we got back to our apartment and seeing Army Reserve vehicles and these other individuals in tan and green uniforms walking down the street with these police cars. And I remember thinking, the Marine Corps is here. And it turns out those were, in fact, deputy sheriffs coming into the city of Los Angeles to assist them with quelling the riots. One of the most profound memories I have of those couple of days was seeing the city burn down, and my mom telling my older brother to go out and get a loaf of bread and some milk and some other things that we might need. And my brother came back with all this stuff that my mom felt like we didn't need, and she was upset with my brother because she felt like he wasted her money. But he told my mom, no, there people are just taking stuff. I got this for free. And so my mom said, I'll be right back. And she left, and she came back with a bunch of groceries. And I think the next day, as though the first day wasn't bad enough, the next day seemed to be even worse because there were people who were knocking on my mother's door, and they were asking for formula and baby food and asking my mom if they had things to feed their children. And my mom had to turn a lot of people away after a while. And that's when I recognized that a lot of people took what they wanted and didn't take what they needed. And so I distinctly remember that. Unfortunately, in South Los Angeles today, you still see the remnants of the 1992 riots. A lot of businesses never came back. The community still looks the same in some areas, particularly on the Western Avenue corridor. It used to be a booming economic hub of tea shops and shoe stores and places where people can get appliances repaired. And you still see a lot of those buildings are vacant today. If not, the pads to the buildings that were burned down are still there.
Oh gosh, how awful. What an awful memory you have, but a powerful one, right? Because without that, who knows what direction your life would have taken, because you're here with us today. You've taken that, channeled it in the most possible way, and created something amazing through your efforts, through your work, through your civic engagement, and your community oversight. So with that said, and your experience, please talk a little bit about what your thoughts are about, some of the recent efforts to defund the police.
Without a doubt, I think in 2020, with all of the political and civil unrest that we saw in 2020, it appears that a lot of people are really upset and looking for answers. They're looking for change in the way that police their community. One of the things that, my personal opinion is that this defund the police movement, if I understand it correctly, is an effort to take funding away from police in order to put it towards other resources. But I think what's missed is that a lot of people don't understand that law enforcement traditionally, for several decades now, has been asked to do more with less. They have been asked to take on responsibilities and roles that are generally not meant for law enforcement officers who are responsible for upholding and enforcing the law. Yet many officers go out every day and we're responding to situations where we're asked to be counselors, we're asked to be childcare providers, we're asked to be legal advisors and psychologists and mental health experts. And so I think with the defund the police movement, before there people call for funding to be taken away from law enforcement agencies, I think there needs to be a serious look at what has the police and law enforcement officers, both on the city side and county side, what have they been asked to do over the last couple of decades that we have never funded? And just look at it critically and just recognize that we've been asked to do far more than what we are supposed to be doing.
Right. And perhaps directing that funding to more training and enhancing those interactions, right? Those social interactions, preparing them for that.
Absolutely. You know, one of the things I remind people of when I'm just out on my patrol, or if I'm ever asked by friends about my thoughts about working in law enforcement, is that I have to remind people that I work for a sheriff's department. A department implies that we are one of many departments in the county of Los Angeles, and I feel like oftentimes we get our unfair share of criticism because if a law enforcement officer is perceived to do something wrong, a deputy sheriff, everybody knows who to call. If they don't know who to call, they're going to Google it and do some scholarly research into finding out how do they get a hold of a supervisor, how do they get a hold of a watch commander. But the same scrutiny is not applied to other departments. There are Department of Public Health, Department of Mental Health, Department of Child and Family Services. When people are not satisfied with the services coming from those departments, nobody. I don't see it. I don't hear about it. I certainly don't see it in the media or in the news where people are upset or protesting about when they feel those departments have not done their job adequately. Now, that's not to say that they're not, but I think that what needs to happen is every department needs to be scrutinized and every equally, and every department needs to be held to very much the same standard, and mainly because, as I often talk about, when you talk about trying to resolve issues in the community, you got to look at it in a holistic way. You have to look at the causes of the inequities, not just the inequity itself, but the causes of the inequity. And it's not just one department that's responsible for the shortcomings of a community. It's everybody who's engaged at every level.
So let's talk about civic engagement, right? How does the concept of civic duty assist with enhancing the outcomes for a community in your view?
Civic engagement, what I hope that people understand, I'm just hoping that we get to a point in society where people realize that they need to be active participants. They need to be involved, and I often say that there are in my opinion, four levels to community engagement, and that is to inform and consult with the community, and also collaborate with the community, and also empower the community. I can break it down to some of the smaller levels. For example, in my responsibilities as a deputy assigned to Parks Bureau, we want residents to feel empowered to talk about the things that they want to see in their parks, in their community. We also want the Parks and Rec staff to feel empowered to take control or stakeholdership over the park, and feel like they have a responsibility. You know, our parks are like $1 million properties, if you really think about it, filled with buildings and all kinds of technology. And we have supervisors with Parks and Rec staff who are responsible for overseeing the operations of these parks. So I just want to break it down on just that small of a level. So one of the things that I try to do is I try to partner with the Parks and Rec staff to identify what are some of their concerns when it comes to law enforcement. And then also, what are some of the concerns of the community members that are coming to these parks and want to recreate in these areas? What are some things that they would like to see? Do they feel safe in these parks? I'm a huge fan of individuals taking back control of their parks, taking responsibility for their parks, because ultimately they belong to them. And I think their input is equally important. But we also need their engagement as well, the community's engagement as well. We need them to be active participants, participate in surveys, provide the feedback to park staff. And then I'll go one level more, one step further and say this. Again, oftentimes when we're dissatisfied with our law enforcement officers and not happy with the outcome of a situation, we're very quick to call and ask to speak to a supervisor. But people don't really think often about calling in to say when things went right. It's one of those things where I think if more people called in to say what went right, it helps us to do our job better. It helps to highlight the deputies who are in fact getting it right, and then using those deputies and those officers as models for how other deputies and officers should interact with the community.
Absolutely. So, DeAndre, let's talk about how, these efforts that you're engaged in tie into your nonprofit.
Absolutely. So I started the nonprofit in 2017. The work in the nonprofit started much earlier than that. When I was engaged in several volunteer activities, I was doing different projects to address some of the social inequities. One of them was the Breath Giving Portraits Project. We went to Children's Hospital Los Angeles and set up photo labs for children who couldn't leave the hospital during the holidays, and we would invite their families in to take family photos. That was as early as 2011, in fact. And then a group of friends got together and decided they wanted to continue that work. And I told them I can't do it because we're raising funds and people aren't able to write this stuff off. And it was exhausting, right? You want to build that trust with people. And they had this idea to formalize the work that I was doing. There are 3 issue areas that I care about that I personally had experience with growing up, and that is food scarcity. The second one is disaster relief. How does a community bounce back following a natural or man-made disaster? And then also education, education in terms of providing those opportunities to students who are actively out there doing the work. So if you would like, Yvette, I can actually run through each one of those if you would like.
Yes, please go through each category and give us a brief synopsis of what that looks like.
Absolutely. So our Social Good Scholarship Fund is in service to students who are already doing the work that best illustrates the mission of the foundation, which is building stronger, more resilient communities together. These are students who may not be your valedictorians or your salutatorians. They may not have those 4.0 GPAs because they are actively going out to the community after school, maybe after they're studying and helping in their community. So these are students who are working in our senior centers. They're helping to coach after school sports programs. They're participating as volunteers in their library. And I'll go even further by saying this. We've had some recipients who have done some amazing work. We have scholarship recipients who have published their second book. And we have recipients who are helping foster youth when they themselves have never been in the foster system, but they see a need to provide that type of support. And then our second one is in terms of food scarcity. We have our food pantry located in our foundation headquarters. We feed approximately 37 families per week. By the end of the year, because it fluctuates, especially during the summer months and during the holidays, by the end of the year, we're feeding about 1,100 families by the end of the year. I'm very proud that our food pantry has received some grant sponsorship from FEMA because they recognize the importance of the work that we're doing. And then we also receive donations from members of the community. And then lastly, we have our disaster relief effort. Since we have implemented the disaster relief effort, we responded, as you alluded to earlier, to Puerto Rico following Hurricane Maria. We worked with organizations to help light up Puerto Rico as a part of our Power to Puerto Rico campaign. We provided solar lamps in order to help families get back up to the village areas. We've also responded to the fireworks explosion that happened recently in the city of Los Angeles and provided staff to do the intake for residents who were looking for ways to interact with their insurance companies and receive disaster assistance. We responded to the Francis incident, which was another fireworks explosion here in the city of Ontario. We addressed some short-term and some immediate needs, and then we also provided long-term support along with food, along with negotiating hotel stays or the costs associated with hotel stays. We responded to Hurricane Harvey. I believe that was in 2018. One of the ones I'm actually really, really proud of is our response to the 2018 Woolsey fire as well, where we assisted along with other organizations with the rebuilding and restoring 50 dwelling units in Agora Hills, Seminole Springs.
Wow. So I love that you offer resources and education on how to navigate those necessary, connections during a disaster. Is this part of your DRE program?
Yeah, we call it DRE, Disaster Relief Effort. and it was a creative name that was formed by one of our board members to basically it's like the end of my first name. So DeAndre is my name, and then DRE, DRE, disaster relief effort, is what they came up with to kind of signal that it had some pairing with my name. It's a little fun fact for you guys.
I love it. So I also understand you're having a back to school expo. Please talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So we had an amazing weekend this past Saturday where we had over 25 volunteers come to the Lampkin and help to stuff backpacks for all levels of school. So from elementary all the way up to high school. And the volunteers, we usually split up the day that we do the volunteering from the day that we actually give away the backpacks, because we have groups of individuals within our communities and supporters who just want to be engaged in the work and help out where they can. And then we do the giveaway. So our Back to School Expo that's coming out on July 29th here at the Lampkin Foundation headquarters in Ontario, California, is not just a backpack giveaway. With everything we do here at the foundation, we make sure that if we're giving something to people, we also want to make sure that they're receiving information. And so we call it our Back to School Expo because we're going to have various nonprofits here, other volunteer organizations, and heads of school districts who will be on hand to provide information to the parents and the students to ensure that they know what resources are available to them to support them throughout the school year. It's not just about just giving them a backpack and giving them a good start. It's really about letting them know what resources are out there that are available to them that can help them for the entire year. So one example, we did this is our third year doing the Back to School Expo. And last year we invited one of our school districts. And one of the things that I learned, and I'm really happy that we invited them, because I learned that they offer ESL classes to parents. There's a lot of parents who are not engaged in the education of their student, interacting with teachers, going to the back to school days, interacting with the administration of the schools because they have a hard time communicating with them. And so there's that natural fear. And so a lot of parents were really happy to hear, and this is just one example of many, that they were able to participate in English second language classes at their school after they drop off their student, or before they pick up their student, or after they pick up their student from school. They can go to those classes together.
Right. Earlier, you spoke about food insecurity and how that's one of your main focus in your work. And in previous conversations, you mentioned community farms. Please talk about how these community farms have assisted your work in addressing food insecurity.
Absolutely. So obviously we have to source food for our food pantry. We do have a few, traditional commercial vendors or stores that we can go to gather food for our food pantry. But we also partner with some of our local community farms. And the way we partner with them is quite naturally they can't always give us non-perishable goods, but we do help assist them with finding volunteers to send out to those farms. And not only just volunteers, individuals who would like fresh produce, we send them out to our local community farms and tell them about the various opportunities there are for them to have their own small farm within those community farms. So we send people out who have a strong desire for fresh fruit or fresh vegetables, and then we also send out to these community farms volunteers. The community farms don't operate just on their own, right? They need people. They need people who are engaged, people who have a sincere interest in community farming. And so we do have individuals who want to volunteer with us, and we don't always have volunteer opportunities. So we send them out to the community farm, and there's also educational components. We have a great partnership with Carmel Connections, which is ran by Elizabeth McSwain. She does an amazing job at providing classes for individuals who are interested in the various techniques to urban gardening. And then we also have sent volunteers to organizations like Puerto del Valle, where it's ran by Maria Alonso. And she's been there for, I want to say close to 10 years. I know she's been doing the work for approximately 15 years. But it's just great to have that community connection. If we can find ways to get organizations to work together, we completely take advantage of that and share resources.
Absolutely. And DeAndre, we're coming up on a break, so it's the perfect time to tell everybody, come back, everyone. Yvette Walker here with ABC News and Talk Southern California Business Report with DeAndre Lampkin, law enforcement professional and lifelong public servant, recently recognized as a 2023 Law Enforcement Officer of the Year Award for Community Service by the American Legion Department of California. He is incredible. He escaped inner city experience to be a community leader, and you have to stick around because he has so much more to share. We will see you soon.
Hi, I'm Dana Rademacher with MGR Property Management.
A lot of people wonder about the value that property management has for their property. Property management can include all property types, including residential, commercial, and HOA. It is valuable because property managers are experienced in what can happen at your property. We're aware of liabilities. We're able to do predictive and preventative maintenance. We know what is coming up with the changes in the weather, the seasons, how old certain aspects or different capital projects at your property are. We're able to best negotiate contract pricing, legalities with your tenants, and anything else that you may need to ensure that you're getting the full value of the property. If you're interested in speaking with the representative at MGR Property Management regarding your property management needs, you can visit our website at mgrrealestate.com, or you can call our number at area code 909-581-6600 to be connected with the representative.
Cal State San Bernardino is home to the only school of entrepreneurship in California. With globally ranked degree programs, you can start your journey today to become a successful entrepreneur. Learn more and connect at entre.csusb.edu.
The University of La Verne is rated first in California for alumni satisfaction. Learn more about accelerated programs offered online and on campus in La Verne, Irvine, Ontario, Burbank, or College of the Canyons. Visit go.laverne.edu. The University of La Verne. go.laverne.edu.
Hi, I'm San Bernardino County Sheriff Shannon Dykes. If you're looking to start an exciting career in law enforcement and make a difference in your community, we are hiring dispatchers, nurses, deputies, laterals, and many more. For a complete list of our jobs and more information, visit sheriffsjobs.com.
Ontario International Airport is onto a better way to fly with over 65 daily non-stop flights to more than 20 major destinations and the easiest airport experience in Southern California. Visit flyonto.com/Ontario to learn more about Ontario International Airport today.
Hi, Ray Lance from the Diamond Center in the Claremont Village here. One of the coolest parts of a third-generation family business is getting to know the families we serve through generations. Once you experience our friendly service, our fair and transparent pricing, and our beautiful jewelry that we make to last a lifetime, you'll stick with us too. Come visit us in the Claremont Village or at Lantz, L-A-N-T-Z, diamondcenter.com and see what makes us different.
Welcome back, everyone. Yvette Walker with ABC News and Talk Southern California Business Report, here today with DeAndre Lampkin, law enforcement professional and lifelong public servant, recently recognized as a 2023 Law Enforcement Officer of the Year for his community service by the American Legion Department of California, sharing his journey of escaping the inner city life to pursue a mission to educate, cultivate, and protect our communities. Thank you again for being with us here today, DeAndre.
Thank you, Yvette, and thank you again for having me.
Absolutely. So prior to the break, we were talking about your efforts to address food insecurity through the use of community gardens. And so prior to the break, I wanted to get into what some of those statistics look like. Can you please share those with us here now?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Lampkin Foundation back in 2020 served as the complete count chair for the U.S. Census, and we had an opportunity to go out to the community and pull some data and get some statistics. And it was a part of a bigger approach to figure out what are some of the needs in the community. That's how we kind of got buy-in for people to want to participate in the census. And what we found was the median income just in this region alone, between LA County and San Bernardino County, is about $55,000 a year for each household. For each individual, it ranged to somewhere around $33,000. As you may or may not be aware, the national average for household income is about $72,000 to $74,000. So
Wow.
hopefully, when you compare those numbers, you can kind of see kind of where the discrepancies are from a national level to a local level. And then us being here in California, we all know that it's very expensive to live here. And so as a result, people have to make a decision as to whether or not they're going to pay their bills or they're going to eat. We just went through this long period of time where people were allowed not to pay their rent. There was COVID checks that were given out. It's worth noting that when in 2020, when the first round of COVID checks, stimulus checks were going out, Ontario ranked Ontario ranked number 12 in the nation for the amount
Oh,
of
wow.
people who were going to receive checks. That's just in the city of Ontario alone. So you can see kind of where the discrepancies are and some of those hard decisions that people have to make when it comes to finding food or eating or paying their bills.
Right. And so having gone through that experience with your own mom, especially during that that emergency, that time of emergency, right? When the stores were barren of food and there was no food to be found. I can only imagine, but I love that you've channeled that experience and your experience into helping others and using resources like a community garden, which is amazing.
There's a story that I share with people that I remember growing up in South Los Angeles, and the nearest grocery store was 10 miles away post riot.
Mm.
And there are so many mothers out there who, when they go grocery shopping, they have to take public transportation. And they typically go to the grocery store, they get enough groceries for the week, they're holding 10 and 12 bags, and they have to stand at the bus stop.
Wow.
Then they load the groceries onto the bus, only to have an operator tell them that they cannot take up a seat or an aisle. And then after they get home, the next thing they have to do is carry those groceries down a few blocks just to get them home. I tell that story to illustrate just how difficult it is for a lot of people, even if they can afford the food or they make the decision to go get food, how difficult it is just to work out the logistics, just to get food on the table, especially for a single mother or single father, single parents. It is extremely difficult.
Wow. Well, I hope that more people pay attention to your model and implement it in their communities to inspire, their communities to grow their community gardens, their community farms, and find ways to make it easier, right? Because I can't even imagine, DeAndre. And I've heard of, obviously we all know about food deserts, right? Within these communities for these purposes, but it's hard to believe and hard to think that these challenges still exist today. So thank you for your work. Thank you for elevating that message. And thank you for, inspiring those around you to do the work. We talked about your role as a sheriff's deputy, your role in civic engagement, your nonprofit focused on education, and as we just spoke about, food insecurity. In addition to that, you own and lead a healthcare staffing company. Please talk about those efforts as well, DeAndre.
Yeah, so believe it or not, there's a direct nexus to my work as a deputy sheriff to this healthcare staffing agency. I spent a short amount of time with the sheriff's department as a mental health evaluator, and I remember being among one of the first teams to roll out to the Antelope Valley area and provide that service that the sheriff's department was taking on wholeheartedly. A mental health collaborative where I was working with a clinician. And our responsibility was to respond to situations where individuals were having mental health crisis. The clinician would evaluate the person, and then as a deputy sheriff, had the authority to place the person on a hold, depending on if it met criteria, and then sitting in the hospital for anywhere from 6 to 8 hours. And as you guys know, typical shift ranges from 8 to 12 hours. And so you're taking up the majority of your shift trying to get one person or one patient the mental health treatment that they were so desperately needing. And I had a discussion at one point with a nurse who approached me, and I had developed this working relationship with them, and they knew what we were trying to do. They knew what the mission was, and that was to get people at the assistance that they needed as soon as possible. And she told me she was leaving, that if she believed it was her last day she would see me. And I didn't understand what she was getting at the time, but she was a nurse that was assigned to a registry. A lot of people don't know this, but a lot of nurses that work in hospitals, and in some cases, the majority of the nurses that work in hospitals, do not actually work for the hospital. They work for what is referred to as a nurse registry, and they're contracted out to that hospital. And so when I learned about what was going on, I also learned that there was a 70% nursing shortage in the state of California.
Wow.
And it's a steep number. I mean, we saw an increase of nurses come into California because of the pandemic, but it still did not reach anywhere near the number of nurses we would need to treat people if we ever, God forbid, have a major disaster here in the state of California. But it, like all deputy sheriffs do, right? We're expected to go out and respond to calls, and we go to situations that we don't necessarily have the expertise for, but people are demanding that we meet their needs and come up with solutions. And I kind of applied that same idea to my personal life and started the nurse registry. One of the things I'm absolutely proud of is that this registry is nationally accredited by the Joint Commission it's referred to as Joint Commission for Accreditation of Healthcare Organizations. We have received numerous awards for the work that we did during the COVID-19 pandemic, including, and this is how we link it with the community service aspect, when employees were being furloughed or unemployed because of the pandemic. Just right here in the city of Ontario, we hired and retrained 106 residents who had lost their job, and retooled them and trained them to become healthcare providers, and then placed them into the healthcare setting by way of having them work at COVID-19 vaccination sites, COVID-19 testing sites. I personally have I took it very serious, took my obligations very serious, not only just as a deputy sheriff, but in my personal life as well. And I'm really happy about the fact that we've been running this company. I've been running this company as a sole owner. I have amazing staff, and we've been around for now 6 years. We have contracts we have both government contracts and private contracts as well. Over 180 employees who are just out there doing the amazing work of keeping our residents healthy and providing the health care that everybody deserves.
I love that. So with this staffing company that you run, please talk about what some of those recruitment efforts look like.
Yeah, so recruitment efforts are very difficult. We are in a state that is not only very expensive to live in, we talked about that, but it's also very expensive to operate a business in. In case you were not aware, healthcare costs when it pertains to healthcare insurance and healthcare costs in general have gone up just 7% just this year compared to last year. And we've seen, dramatic increases over the last couple of years, mainly due to the increased need for healthcare professionals, but also the liability that comes along with it. So we've seen increase in cost in workers' compensation insurance, general liability insurance, but then we're also competing with this thought that nurses deserve better pay. You're probably noticing more and more nurses protesting, stating that they are basically, just like law enforcement officers, being asked to do more with less. There was a protest on the news about 2 weeks ago from a particular facility where they talked about how they are experiencing staffing shortages. Nurses are burned out after the pandemic. They are absolutely burned out. And in some cases, you have your lower level nursing professionals, healthcare professionals, like your medical assistants, your certified nursing assistants. They are engaging in work that was previously done by licensed vocational nurses. You have some licensed vocational nurses that are doing work that was previously reserved for registered nurses. And then you have some registered nurses who are now doing the work of doctors in some cases. For example, nurse practitioners. There was a new law that passed here in the state of California recently that is now allowing nurse practitioners to engage in parts of their practice that were previously only allowed by doctors. So we have all of these competing factors. We have individuals who are so burned out that they're quitting their jobs, they're applying for unemployment. Companies are unable to keep up with the amount of people who are applying for unemployment. Money's being pulled from the unemployment insurance, and that in turn means that is less income that a company like mine can retain. And as a result, we're having to let go of employees or just scale back operations so we can refill that unemployment insurance pot. And then we're also competing with the taxes that the state has basically laid upon businesses just to operate a business. Recently, we were dealing with this issue with being taxed not only by the state but by the county because even though we're in the city, the county wants their taxes too. So there's all of these competing factors that makes it very difficult for us to retain nurses. And I also forgot to mention this part, that the way in which a nurse is allowed to work in a hospital, I believe needs to be some reform because typically to get nurses to work in hospitals are requiring that the nurse has 2 years of experience. And they're leaning on, common practice in the state of California. But the question is, how do you find a nurse with 2 years of experience when a nurse is going to school here in California? They're not allowed to work in the hospital, but they went to school to work in a hospital, but then they're told you have to have 2 years of experience before you can work in a hospital. I think that the state of California is essentially exporting their best talent. I can say hands down that our nurses in California receive some of the best training there is in our nation. They're highly sought in almost every state, but to know that they're going through this training and they're then not allowed to work in the state in which they train, and even though they met all the qualifications of the state in which they train, they're not allowed to work in that state because they need to have 2 years of experience if they're not so lucky to get pulled in by another hospital right off the bat because of a schooling program. So what does that mean? Nurses, essentially, they move to other states. They'll go to Arizona and Nevada, for example, work there for 2 years, and then figure they'll come back to California once they have their 2 years of experience. But what ends up inevitably happening is that they find it is more expensive to move back to California, and therefore they never return. And if they do, they're asking for a pay rate that we are sometimes unable to fulfill.
Right. So, DeAndre, please share the upside of what a career in healthcare looks like and what your thoughts are on some of these, strikes that are occurring within other fields.
Yeah, so we don't want to make this all doom and gloom, right?
No, yes. Let's talk about the upside. Yes.
Yeah, we talk about the upside. So, one of the things that when I have discussions with my nurses, one of the things that I find is that our nurses are certainly people who care about people. And they are people who are genuinely interested in seeing tangible results in their work. So some of the upsides are, you do get that gratification out of your career. You feel like you're actually making a difference in your community. I think the COVID-19 pandemic really highlighted the need for healthcare professionals. And I use the term healthcare professionals because there's nurses at all various levels. We have people who are needed on the administrative side. We have HR specialists who are needed, medical assistants who are needed, certified nursing assistants that are needed. And at every level, I found that they are people who are genuinely looking for gratification in their work. They take pride in what they do. They are, caregivers. They're people who care about people.
I love it. And as you so eloquently framed it, job security, right?
Absolutely. There will always be people who are sick. And there will always be people who need to be comforted in their last days.
Absolutely. So let's talk about what sustainability looks like in these fields today.
Sustainability in healthcare in particular looks like acknowledging, as I said earlier, acknowledging that we have the best and brightest talent here in California. Changing and tweaking some of those rules to make it easier for individuals who have gone to school here, gone through the training, passed their exams, and who want to stay here in the state of California. Also, making it easier for, or actually incentivizing some of our skilled nursing facilities to utilize registries. If they themselves are unable to keep their staffing numbers or staffing levels up in a way that is safe for our patients, incentivizing them to utilize nurse registries. One of the things that I've seen that might be a positive change is for insurance companies to start requiring skilled nursing facilities and acute care facilities to have a registry backup as a part of the application process when they're applying for their general liability and workers' comp insurance. That way, we can ensure, or insurance companies can ensure, that if a healthcare or a skilled nursing facility or an acute care facility is ever sued due to malpractice because of low staffing numbers, the facility has already can easily demonstrate that they've made every effort to find nurses and bring things up to a adequate staffing level. You're seeing in these protests, a lot of nurses are complaining about having to manage so many patients. Every patient doesn't have the same needs. There are some patients that are more severe than others in terms of their condition. And the nurses are absolutely right. I mean, you can say easily that the ratio for nurse to patient ratio is 1-8 or 1-15. However, it doesn't mean that all 15 of those patients all have the same condition. Some patients need a little bit more attention than others. So ideally, I think those are some of the changes that we should make in the state of California. We did make some of those changes on a temporary basis or an emergency basis here in the state of California. And I think that some of those things that we were doing, such as being allowed to bring nurses in from other states and bringing nurses in from other countries who we have relationships with, I think that some of those changes should have been made permanent.
Absolutely. So I'm sure a question everybody's got on their mind is, number one, how do you get it all done? And please share how the community can connect and learn more about you and support you.
I get that question a lot. I have 5 jobs. People think I'm joking when I say that. And to answer your question very easily, I have an amazing group of staff. I have an amazing leadership team that operates the healthcare company, Care Staffing Professionals. I have an amazing lead administrative support team that assists with the daily operations of the nonprofit. I have amazing colleagues who I work with as a city planning commissioner. And I also have amazing partners with the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department who understand my thought process, who want to work with me. I have an amazing group of supervisors who understand my approach as well, and they try to work with me. And all of that together said, there is that saying that no man is an island, and it is very much true. I certainly would not be able to get any of this done without the buy-in from. I would even go further and say without the buy-in of the staff that I work with on the Parks and Rec side, and also community members who step up and they inform me of what they care about and the issues that are a concern for them, make my job so much easier because essentially they set the agenda for the day. And if they are able to communicate and we're all able to sit down together and we're able to collaborate together, there is so much we can get done in our communities, especially when you are supporting your law enforcement in a way that it lets them know that we have their back, They're willing to let us know when things are going wrong, equally to letting us know when things are going right.
I love it. And I can't believe we're to the end of the program, DeAndre, but thank you so much for joining us here today and for not only doing the work, but sharing, the work that you're doing and hopefully inspiring those that hear your story. Thank you so much for being with
Absolutely.
us.
If anybody wants to reach out to me, you can go to lampkinfoundation.org and you can contact me there, or you can reach out to me by contacting our office, which the information is available on the same website as well.
Perfect. All right. For everybody listening here today, don't forget to look for us on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Instagram. Check us out on scbrtalk.com. And for events, Wednesday, August 2nd from 8:30 a.m. to 12 p.m. at the Lake Forest Golf Practice Center located at 23308 Cherry Avenue, Lake Forest. A Rotary event of Grandpa Bob's Day of Sunshine and Hope is looking for youth with special needs that are interested in learning how to play golf. All necessary adaptive equipment is provided. All you have to do is show up and be ready for a day of fun. Call Cedric Campbell, Lake Forest Rotary Club President, for more information at area code 949-309-2402. Don't miss my interview with Dora Barilla, the president of HC2 Strategies and the co-chair of Stakeholder Health. She is the former VP for Community Health Investment at Providence and the founder and chair for a not-for-profit organization, Partners for Better Health, promoting health initiatives in communities. Dora has spent the last 2 decades putting healthcare plans in place that are strategic, effective, and yes, downright creative. Next week, we will have Sierra Rose and Jim Bunce. Sierra Rose is Archives Director of the Calaveras County Historical Society. She attended Catholic schools in Riverside County and after graduation enlisted in the Army Reserves as a psychological operations specialist. She attended the University of California, Davis and obtained a Bachelor's of Arts degree in history with a minor in German. Her father immigrated to the United States after World War II in 1951, and she remembers hearing his stories of war-torn Europe and living in a displaced persons camp in Linz, Austria. Her family stories inspired and compelled her to study history and explore the circumstances and events that affected her ancestors. Jim Bunce is the 5th-generation descendant of the Maria Inocenta Pico, who was the sister of the last governor of California before statehood, Pio Pico, and Andres Pico, one of the first California assemblymen and later an elected United States senator. You do not want to miss it. We will see you all next week.
This has been the Southern California Business Report with Yvette Walker on KMET 1490 AM, FM 98.1, and ABC News Radio affiliate, a show dedicated to highlighting successful Southern California businesses and the people behind them. Remember to visit the podcast page on the KMET website.
The proceeding was a